My wife April and I have done hundreds of sponsorships over the years and have made over $3 million doing it. But we've definitely regretted some of them. So buckle up, because I'm gonna share 5 different stories and the lessons that you can take away so you don't make the same mistakes we did. Deal number 1. So an opportunity came to us from a very well-known advertising agency that we'd worked with in the past for a pain relief product. First of all, it's always a great sign when you see a familiar face. That almost always is an indicator for us that this is gonna be a good partnership because they valued what we brought to the table last time and now they're coming back for more. Sweet. So at the outset, the agency casually mentioned that this is a regulated product because it comes from a pharmaceutical company. We didn't really think anything of it other than that the approval process might be a little longer than normal, but we planned so far in advance for our content that it's never really an issue. So we signed the contract, the concept nailed down, and then the last thing that we're waiting on is the creative brief. And this is the document where the brand outlines exactly how we should talk about the product, key messages that they want us to hit, the call to action, like going to your local grocery store to pick it up, and so on. Our first indicator that this deal was going to be a nightmare was that it took them a very long time to finalize the brief. They kept saying that, the brand's legal team was going back and forth on the language and exactly what we could and could not say. In our minds, we were kind of thinking like, why didn't they finalize this stuff before they actually reached out to us? And this is a really important insight, which is that brands change their mind all the time. I honestly kind of felt a little bad for the agency because these types of situations, they're kind of playing the messenger for the brand and they really didn't have much control over all the moving pieces. So after what felt like an eternity, the brand finally got back to us with an approved creative brief and an approval on our concept. So we filmed everything, YouTube videos, Instagram posts. It was actually quite a bit of content and we were really proud of it. We thought it was compelling, in alignment with the creative vision, and we were stoked to see what they thought of it. So we submitted it, and then it just kind of fell into a black hole. We kept asking and asking, what's the status? Any feedback from the brand? And the agency just kept pushing us off, right? They're still reviewing. There have been some changes. The legal team has some new requirements. And I think about a month after we submitted initially, the agency came back to us and said that the legal team has decided that we cannot proceed with the partnership based on new regulatory requirements, and we have to terminate the deal. Mind you, that we had already created the content, we just hadn't posted it yet. So what do you think the agency did? Well, they paid us tens of thousands of dollars to not post anything. 2 lessons from this one. Always have termination clauses in your contracts which outline exactly what would happen in a scenario like this, where the brand chooses to cancel everything after you've already created the content but haven't posted it yet. And the other lesson is if you sense that the brand hasn't fully solidified their strategy and there are stakeholders on their side, like the legal team who are really concerned about certain aspects of the partnership, slow everything way down. Triple and quadruple check that when they say this is the approved creative brief, that this really is actually approved. The last thing you want to do is go out and create a bunch of amazing content and then have the brand say, psych. So deal number 2 was with a very well-known food brand through their agency. This is like a dream brand, okay? Contracts seemed pretty normal, a few red lines that we had to make, but pretty standard stuff except for one clause that seemed pretty innocuous at the time. Basically said that we will not pay you until we get paid by our client, which is the brand. So on the surface, that makes sense, right? Like, if the brand owes the agency $100,000 and they're paying you $10,000 for this campaign, it's reasonable to wait until they get paid so that they can pay you, right? But what happens when, for whatever reason, the agency has a dispute with the brand, or they start having financial issues, or their accounts payable team gets really backed up? All of those things now directly affect you and your landlord banging on your door asking where your rent payment is. And so we executed the entire partnership. It was very successful. And then we submitted our invoice. We followed up when we were getting close to the payment due date, and the agency assured us that payment would be rendered as soon as possible. And another couple weeks passed, didn't receive anything, so followed up again, and that's when they hit us with the fact that the brand hadn't paid them yet. They called out that clause in the contract, and we were like, oh, well, that sucks. But what are we supposed to do about it, right? We signed that contract, we could piss and moan about it, but really, what would that do? So we just waited longer and longer, multiple months, until I finally had to rely on common decency, and I basically said, look, I get that your client hasn't paid you yet, but at some point, we're 3-4 months past this payment due date, and that just isn't right. What is it gonna take for us to close out this partnership? We have upheld our side of the bargain, and we would greatly appreciate it if you figured out a way to make this happen. And that was what did it. We appealed to their sense of responsibility. So the lesson here is, number one, try to avoid clauses like that. And if that's absolutely unavoidable, try to get 50% down at the standard payment terms so that at the very least, the clock starts now and you'll at least be able to detect and resolve these problems a lot sooner. Deal number 3 was with a well-known vitamin brand, and this was a very standard partnership. I think just one in-feed Instagram post, a couple of story frames, nothing out of the ordinary at all about the contract, the execution, anything like that. But everything came off the rails when we posted it. I'm sure you're wondering what the heck happened. Well, as part of the partnership, they were going to provide us with a coupon code so our followers could get a discount on the product. Again, this is very normal. We do this all the time. But the one thing that we did not do was test the coupon code to make sure that it actually worked and gave a discount to our followers. So when we released the post with the caption saying, hey, I'll put the link in my bio and use this code to get 25% off, we had hundreds of frustrated comments that no one could redeem it. You know what was the worst part about this? It was over the weekend, so we couldn't get a hold of anyone from the brand. So by the time we actually connected with them, the promo code redemption period that we had mentioned in the caption was over. And remember, this was a conversion-focused campaign, so it was basically impossible to measure how successful it had been. So whose fault is it in that scenario? Well, most creators would say that it's the brands. And I'm gonna take a controversial stance, which is that it was actually our fault because we are professional creators. And this should have been on our checklist of things to verify before we put our reputation on the line by sharing a product with our followers. Again, you're telling your followers, hey, go patronize this brand. We think it's awesome. We think you'll love it too. But when they can't redeem the dang promo code, that doesn't just reflect poorly on the brand, that reflects poorly on you. Because the next time you get a sponsorship, that follower might think twice about checking out the latest brand or product that you're hawking. Deal number 4 was with a well-known kids food brand. The agency that approached us about the opportunity was actually one that we didn't like working with very much because they always sent us lowball offers. And so we basically went against our own intuition because it was a brand that we already loved and used all the time. But surprise, surprise, we signed the agreement, we shot the content, and when the agency got back to us with the brand feedback, they basically said, well, we just don't like the way it looks and we'd like you to reshoot it. We basically said, okay, yeah, but what exactly don't you like? Can you give us more specific direction? Because we feel like we fulfilled everything we said we were gonna do. And they just said, oh, well, you know, it's not really what we had in mind. And we just kept prodding and trying to get some more direction because who's to say that if we went and we shot it again, that they wouldn't say the exact same thing to the new content. So finally, they gave us more concrete direction and we looked at the contract and we were kind of screwed because there was language in the contract saying that the brand could ask for reshoots if it didn't adhere to the brand standards in their sole discretion. That keyword, sole discretion, means that they can just decide that without any feedback from us. 2 lessons here. Obviously, it can never be in the brand's sole discretion, whether you do a reshoot or not. And the other thing, which is maybe not as obvious, is that you should be sending a concept to the brand for approval before you ever shoot. Even if they're not asking for one, you have to give them the opportunity to be like, oh, whoa. Actually, no, that's completely the opposite of what we had in mind. Because I'm almost positive that had we done that, we would have completely avoided this situation. Deal number 5, wow, this one was a doozy. Okay, this was an opportunity where we actually had to fly somewhere for a full production shoot, like a full crew, the whole shebang. And this is exciting, right? But this was a really quick turnaround. Basically, the agency approached us and was like, this is an accelerated timeline. We have to make this happen. We have to fly you out because these assets have to go live by a certain date. And so we were doing a bunch of stuff in parallel. We were looking at airfare, we were trying to provide concepts to the agency, and I kept asking them for the contract, and they kept saying, we're working on it. We just have a bunch of other balls up in the air trying to get this production in line. It's understandable, right? So this was kind of a leap of faith. And, we booked the plane tickets. Usually we do that and then we get reimbursed by the brand. So I think it was the day before we were about to leave, we got the draft of the contract, and overall it looked pretty good. However, in the deliverables section, they were asking us to make a lot more posts than we had agreed to over email. So we basically struck those from the agreement and sent it back, basically saying, hey, looks good. We made a few changes to make sure it's in alignment with what we had agreed to. Let us know if you have any questions. And they just signed that version of the contract. And so the next day, we're literally on the airplane pushing back from the gate. We're on the tarmac, right? And we get a frantic email, frantic phone call from one of the higher ups at the agency who basically said that their coordinator had made a mistake with the contract and that they shouldn't have signed the agreement removing those other posts. Remember, we're on the tarmac. So what are you gonna do in that situation? What they were asking for should have cost a lot more money, but we always come at it from the perspective of how can we make this agency win? It was obviously an error on their side by no fault of ours, but how can we make this thing happen and still make everyone happy? And so ultimately what we did is we kind of met them halfway. We agreed to change some of the posts around so we could still satisfy their client and kind of just washed our hands of it. At the end of the day, this was our fault. We should never have booked plane tickets, got on that plane until we had a signed agreement. But in our excitement, we were gonna make a little vacation out of it for the kids, and we just didn't let the contract stage play out as it should have, because had they caught it and had we not been on the plane, perhaps this deal might not have gone through. So the lesson here is that even if the brand or the agency is trying to say, we gotta go, 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 it's your job to say, oh, no, let's slow down to make sure we're on the same page. So look, we're not done. Watch this video where I talk about how I lost $24,000 from an especially epic sponsorship fail. So click the video.